Good morning, Sandy. I'm still in my PJs, having my coffee. I hope you have good coffee in the hospital, and if not, I hope there's Tim Hortons nearby and some willing soul that will go get you a decent cup of coffee. We're starting Miss Julia this morning in chapter 2. Hope you rested last night too. I parked in front of Sam's large white house with the floor-to-ceiling windows bordered by Charleston green shutters. Then I stomped up the brick walkway, fuming at the nefarious ways of our pastor and ready to demand that Sam do something about him. "Mr. Sam in the living room," James said, greeting me at the door as I crossed Sam's broad front porch. That was plainly evident since I heard laughter coming from the large room opening off the hall where we were standing. One deep rumble from Sam and another lighter, almost infectious laugh from a woman. From the sound of it, Sam had taken a sudden turn for the better. "That nurse," I said to James. "She's here already?" "Yes'm, she's been here a while. She's working on Mr. Sam real good." "I can tell," I said with a sniff, climbing off one high horse and getting ready to mount another one. I handed him my coat and scarf. "No need to hang 'em up. I won't be staying long." I walked to the large arch that opened into Sam's living room and stopped in my tracks. All the worries that burdened my soul flew out of my mind as I saw what was going on. A fire blazed in the fireplace, warm in the high-ceilinged room filled with bookshelves and leather furniture. Sam sat in the big chair by the fire, his cast-laden legs stretched out on an ottoman. Everything was as it should be, except for the fact that he was bent over, half naked, and some curly-headed young woman was leaning over his back, doing I couldn't determine what to him. "Julia!" Sam called, looking up from what had to be the most uncomfortable position, though it didn't seem to be bothering him. "Come on in here. I want you to meet this angel of mercy. This is Miss Etta Mae Wiggins. Miss Wiggins, meet Miss Julia Springer." "Pleased, I'm sure," Miss Wiggins said, continuing whatever ministration she was conducting on Sam's back. Bright, cupid face framed with blonde curls smiled at me, a face that would have been considerably improved with several layers of paint stripped from it. She wore one of those white pantsuits that nurses have so unprofessionally taken to, which do so little for most of them. This young woman, however, filled it admirably if you admired tight fits. "Miss Wiggins," I said with a formal nod of my head, "I wanted it understood that I hadn't come to join in the kind of merriment they were obviously enjoying. Don't let me interrupt whatever treatment the two of you are involved in. Sam, you asked me to come over and help you evaluate the need for a representative of the handy home helpers, but it looks as if you've already made up your mind." "So I have, Julia, but come on in and sit by me." He reached out his hand, which under the circumstances I wouldn't have taken. Sam was the kind of man that makes you feel comforted when you're close to him, probably because he's a big man, full-chested and white-haired, distinguished looking, I'd say, until you noticed his sparkling blue eyes that saw the humor in everything. That was the only thing I could hold against him, since I'm a woman of serious demeanor and intent. "I'm glad to see you," he went on. "Miss Wiggins here is giving me a back rub to end all back rubs. Sit down, Julia, sit down." I did, perching on the edge of the sofa near Sam's chair, but considerably ill at ease at the close proximity to his unclothed state. Wiggins, I thought, watching her slather her hands with a floral-smelling lotion, nothing medicinal about it, and continued to massage Sam's back. I knew some Wigginses, knew of, that is, as did every resident of Abbott County. That family was known as for as many less than stellar accomplishments as the Puckett family, of which Hazel Marie was a notable exception. Miss Wiggins leaned over and whispered something in Sam's ear, making him shake with laughter. That was so rude to just whisper in front of someone else. And Sam was as much at fault as she was, laughing without including me. I stood up. Well, I see you're busy with your therapy, so I'll be getting back. I do wish you'd called me, Sam, and saved me a trip in this weather. Don't go, Julia. You just got here. I want you to get to know Etta Mae. She's just what the doctor ordered, and has already done me a world of good. That just put my back up. Obviously, all my help and care and concern since he'd gotten home from the hospital was not worth mentioning, since this little twit had come in for 30 minutes and canceled out everybody else. And Etta Mae, since when had the nurses allowed their parents such easy familiarity? This wasn't like Sam at all, who was as formal in his dealings with women of all ages as any well-bred Southern gentleman ought to be. What had the young woman done to him? Just came into his home and within an hour had him laughing and chuckling and half naked, rubbing her hands all over his back and around and under his arms and whispering things in his ear. It was the most unseemly kind of nursing I'd ever seen. Miss Wiggins, I said as I stood up, what is the condition of Sam's broken bone? Is the cast too tight? What about the itching that's driving him up the wall? What do you plan to do to make him more comfortable at night? He's hardly able to sleep with that heavy thing on him. Oh, don't worry about any of that. We're taking care of it, she said. Then, with a knowing smile, she went on. Mr. Sam's not going to have any trouble sleeping tonight, not after I get through with him. She ran her hands up around his neck, massaging the muscles with an indelicate kind of touch and rubbing. You're going to sleep good tonight, aren't you, you old sweet thing, you? My mouth dropped open. I expected Sam to put her in her place with that devastatingly polite way he had of cutting people down to size. But no, all he did was grin up at me like, see, Julia? I turned on my heel, having had enough of this spectacle. If that was the kind of service a home health care professional provided, then I wanted no part of it. And I was fuming because Sam couldn't see straight through her way the way I could. It was a settled fact that he had neither the time nor the intent to listen to my problems. If you need anything after Miss Wiggins leaves, you can have James call me, I said, heading across the room, although I doubt there's anything I can do for you. Julia, Sam said, straightening up and reaching for his shirt. Miss Wiggins helped him get into it, coming around in front to button it for him, a chore that he could have easily managed for himself. It was his leg that was broken. Julia, don't go. We've hardly had time to visit. I'll come back when you're not so busy. How often do you plan to come, Miss Wiggins? Anytime Mr. Sam wants me, I'll be here, she said breezily. All he has to do is whistle. I could have smacked her, and Sam too, because he laughed with her, his eyes sparkling as brazen little Snip took a brush to his hair. I'm going to have you looking so handsome and feeling so good that all the ladies in town are going to be ringing your bell, she said, leaning over him so that her bosom was practically in his face. It was more than I could stand. Sounds like you're going to be here all the time, I said, letting my feelings put an edge to my words. I couldn't help myself. Maybe you should just move in. Why, I'd do it in a minute if she'd have me, she said. And part of what made me so mad was the fact that everything she said to me was really addressed to Sam, and it was eating me up. She reached down and smoothed his eyebrows. Then she had the nerve to say, any woman with any sense would grab this good-looking man and hold on to him as hard as she could. Sam did have the grace to blush, but he liked it. Men just don't have any sense at all. Here was this little flirt, young enough to be his youngest daughter if he'd had one, flattering him without a lick of shame, and he couldn't or wouldn't see through it. If this was what nursing had come to, it was time to reconsider the value of the whole profession. If Sam needed flattery, which comes down to just plain lying, then I could do it just as well and probably better, and it wouldn't cost him a dime, but you won't see me lowering myself to such a degree. Julia, Sam said, sitting back in his chair after Miss Wiggins had buttoned his sweater and put an afghan over his knees, come back here and talk to me a minute. I know you have something on your mind, and I want to hear it. Oh, it's nothing that won't wait until you have more time. I could be just as breezy as Mrs. Wiggins. Just a few small matters, like Pastor Ledbetter getting ready to build something in my front yard, and Brother Vern sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong, and Luann Conover about to leave Leonard after 40-something years, and Hazel Marie off gallivanting all night long and nobody knowing where she is. Nothing at all to worry you with, since you're too sick to give a thought to what other people might be going through. Hazel Marie Puckett, Miss Wiggins said. I gave her a glance that should have frozen her, but didn't. Most people know better than to enter a conversation that has nothing to do with them, but that didn't stop her. I know Hazel Marie, and that girl's just had the hardest time. I heard she was living with you, her and that sweet little boy of hers. How's she doing these days? Not wishing to discuss the hard time Hazel Marie had, especially since she'd had it with my husband, I pursed my lips and considered just ignoring her. But I was not one of those people who could be intentionally rude. I don't know how she's doing right this minute. As I said, she hasn't come home yet. Other than that, I guess she's doing fine. Sam, I said, turning to the one I wanted to talk to, I don't know what to do. She went off with that Wilson T. Hodge, and you know what I think of him. Well, Julia, she's a grown woman, so I don't know there's anything you can do. I'm worried about her. She's never done this before, and I don't care if she's thinking of marrying him. She ought not to be spending the night with him or anybody else, and she has that child to consider. Good morning, Marley. I'm reading to Sandy. Miss Wiggins looked from one to the other of us, her eyes as wide and blue as the blue paint on them would allow. That doesn't sound like Hazel Marie, she said. That little boy's her whole life. Don't encourage Julia in her worries, Etta May, Sam said, as if I had to be calmed down and patted on the head. Julia, Hazel Marie knows that little Lloyd is in good hands with you. She's not going to be worried about him. For all we know, she and Wilson T. have eloped. They probably didn't want to go through that elaborate wedding you've been planning. I'd just not worry about it if I were you. Well, you're not me, and don't start putting it off on me either. Implying that the plans I had for their wedding were not appreciated. I don't care if they elope or walk down the aisle of the First Presbyterian Church with 16 attendants. All I want to know is, where is she now? Give her a little more time. She'll be home. Now, Etta May, where's that special treat you promised me? Right in the kitchen, some of my granny's tea. Believe me, it's just a ticket to young you up by about 20 years. Not that a fine man like you needs it, though. Miss Julia, would you like some? I've got plenty. No, I would not. Thank you all the same. I have things to do. Better things I wanted to say, but it's not my way to be sarcastic. I wish you'd stay, Sam said, but his eyes were on Miss Wiggins as she swished herself out of the room. You'll have to do more than wish, I said, half under my breath, as I headed into the hall, got my coat, and left. The temperature had dropped, although the wind had begun to slack off by the time I stood on his porch, wrapping my scarf around my neck and trying to get myself together. All I could think of was how history was repeating itself. First, Wesley Lloyd had cast an eye, as well as other things, towards a younger woman, and now Sam was doing the same. Was it in every man's nature to discard a decent, upright, and loyal woman in favor of any little twit that threw herself at him? I shook myself, not wanting to open up old wounds having to do with Hazel Marie, who was now in different circumstances, thanks to my efforts. But it was hard, having just been witness to how easily a man could be taken in, even someone like Sam, who was as level-headed as you could ask for. If he couldn't see past the makeup and the bouncing and jiggling and flattery, then there wasn't hope for any man alive. Well, it was a settled fact that, like Wesley Lloyd, Sam couldn't be trusted. Better to know now, I told myself, than to find it out after a whole town was laughing behind my back. A sudden gust of wind blew across the porch, making me shiver as I pulled my coat closer. But as cold as I was steaming inside, knowing how close I'd come to making a fool of myself for the second time in my life, and knowing that I was left to do everything by myself, as usual. I hope you have a great day. Go get some good coffee. Bye.